Hi, let's go ahead and get started on our unit on salary. We just finished hourly pay, so now we're going to go ahead and move to salary. Salary pay is a fixed amount given every pay, no matter the amount of hours worked. Usually, salaried employees there's an agreed number of hours they're supposed to work, and there's usually an agreed number of days they're supposed to work a year. For example, teachers are salaried employees. There's a certain number of hours that I'm required to be here and a certain number of days that I'm required to work a year, and for that I get paid a salary. Now, some jobs will pay you a salary plus overtime if you still clock in and out and you work hours over overtime. So we are going to go ahead and talk about hourly pay or overtime pay with salary. And this does not happen for me as a teacher, and most salaried jobs are not paid overtime. However, when I worked straight out of college, when I worked at the bank in Marietta, I did get paid a salary, plus if I worked hours over 40 a week, I got paid overtime. So to calculate that, you have to do a couple different things in order to find the pay. So we're going to go ahead and do that today. I suggest that you take notes and write this down on a sheet of paper so that you can use it later when you're doing your worksheet. The steps are new and different. Okay, so salary, a fixed amount every pay, no matter the amount of pay. Some companies will pay overtime for salaried employees based on the number of hours their salary was determined upon. So let's go ahead and look at that. Calculating overtime rate and earnings for salaried employees. Since you don't have an hourly rate, you have to calculate your hourly rate first, and then from there, go ahead and find your overtime earnings. So let's do that. Step one here, how do I calculate my hourly rate? I'm going to take my weekly salary, and it has to be weekly. If you get paid bi-weekly salary, then you have to use your bi-weekly over your regular hours every other week. So your weekly salary divided by your regular hours, and that's going to give me my hourly rate. Then step two, to find your overtime rate, you're going to take the answer to step one and multiply it by 1.5, which is very similar to what you did in hourly. And then step three, you're going to take the number of overtime hours you had times the overtime rate, which you got in step two. So let's do two examples. Oops. All right, find the weekly gross earnings for the following people who are on salary and are paid time and a half for overtime. These people are salary-based employees. So this is Joey. The regular hours he works per week is supposed to be 40 hours, and he gets $720 for working those 40 hours. However, if Joey works overtime, he gets paid for all the hours of overtime. So how do we calculate that? Well, let's look at our instructions. Step one, we have to calculate his hourly rate. Well, if you look, we do have an hourly rate spot in our box right here that we can actually calculate the hourly rate. I'm going to take the weekly salary of $720 and divide it by the regular hours, which are 40. So we have 720 divided by 40, and I forgot to get my calculator out, so let me do that real quick. Where is my calculator? Okay, I found it. So I'm going to take 720 and divide it by 40. And that gives me $18. That's going to be his hourly rate. $18 an hour. So now, step two, I need to find his overtime rate, which if you look, is the next box. I'm going to take that 18 and find overtime. He gets paid time and a half, which is 1.5. I'm going to take 18 times 1.5, and that's going to give me that rate. 18 times 1.5 gives me $27. Now, how many overtime hours did Joey have? Well, the same way you calculated the hourly, you calculate for salary. His regular hours are 40, but he worked 54. So we're going to go ahead and subtract. I'm going to take 54 minus 40, and that's going to give me 14, and that's how many overtime hours he worked. Now, calculate regular earnings. Normally, when we did hourly pay, we took two things and multiplied them, but we don't have to here because this is a salaried employee. So we're just going to take the weekly salary, I'll go ahead and highlight that, and just put it right here. He gets $720 for that first 40 hours. So that's exactly what we're going to put in that section. So we're just going to put 720. I'm going to go ahead and write that in a different color. 720. And then his overtime earnings, I'm going to take my overtime rate, go ahead and highlight that in a different color, my overtime rate times my overtime hours. So these two, we're going to multiply them together to find our overtime earnings. So I have 27 times 14. My calculator out, I have 27 in there, times 14, $378. And then to find your weekly gross earnings, the same as with hourly, I'm going to take my regular plus my overtime. So 720 plus 378 is going to give me $1,098. Let's see if I can fit that in that little tiny box. Okay, let's do one more example. This time I'm going to do it without my steps. Okay, Sarah, her regular hours a week are 32. Maybe Sarah works a really difficult, high-stress job, so they made a deal with her that she could work less hours for as regular time instead of 40. So her regular hours a week are 32. Her weekly salary is $560. So let's go ahead and find her hourly rate, which is what we did earlier. We took our 560, or in this case, divided by 32. $17.50 is her hourly rate. Now her overtime rate, I'm going to take that $17.50 and multiply it by 1.5. $26.25. Overtime hours, I'm going to take my hours worked of 46 and subtract 32. So I have 46 minus 32, which we're going to get 14 again. Overtime hours is 14. Regular earnings, and this is the easy one. Remember, regular earnings is just the weekly salary. I'm just going to take that weekly salary, oops, wrong spot, weekly salary, and put it right into regular earnings. So 560. Overtime earnings, now this is the one we have to calculate. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to take my overtime rate, $26.25, times my overtime hours of 14. I'm going to go ahead and circle those so you see where I'm getting those, so that when you do your boxes, you know, times 14. So $26.25 times 14, $367.50. And then to find weekly gross earnings, I'm just going to add 560 plus 367.50. $927.50. Squeeze that 50 in there. There we go. $927.50 are the weekly gross earnings. Go ahead and try worksheet 1. There are 6 problems just like this one, If you need to rewatch this, you can. You can also watch this on YouTube, where you can fast forward and rewind so you can watch the examples being done again. Let me know if you need help.